Hello and welcome. You're watching a brand new episode of Melt. I'm Ritvika Gupta, and on the show today we'll be speaking to Sussane O'Gorman and Preeti Reddy from Kantar. Anant Rangaswami, editor of Melt, joins me today. Hi Anant.
Hello.
Anant, so recently Kantar came up with a report, the CX Plus India Retail Banking Report, which sort of gives us insight into the health of banks and the expectations of customers. So what did Sussane and Preeti say? Are banks here successfully delivering a customer-centric experience?
Yeah, I think are they delivering or not is not one of the things they measured. They measured which banks are doing well, which banks are doing badly, and most importantly, what are consumers looking for.
Okay.
So we've got into this complex analog and digital delivery of service. So the crux of the discussion was what are the new expectations of the consumers in a digital world, in an analog plus digital world. So earlier we were discussing on a digital world. So what is the analog plus digital world?
All right, so let's have a look at the conversation. Let's get ready to melt with Sussane O'Gorman and Preeti Reddy.
Hello, Susanna and Preeti, welcome. So before we get into your study, I want to ask you, Susanna, what is your understanding of the hygiene factors that go into a consumer thinking of a particular bank or banks in the consideration set?
So what we are seeing across many countries is that one of the key imperatives is actually that banks are not letting down their customers. And this sounds pretty basic, but it implies that you are avoiding service failures, that you are responsive, that you are getting back to the customer when they need to get hold of you. And I would say this is one of the key hygienics from a customer perspective. We are not talking about delight, we are not talking about making it an extraordinary experience yet, but still it is a factor where not all brands are consistently able to do that.
And what about trust and reputation? Where does that come in? Now, imagine I've not opened a bank account.
Yeah.
What causes me to first think of a particular bank or a set of banks?
Yes. So trust is hugely important, and very often it's critical that this is not only a trust that is communicated via a marketing message. We also know that a lot of customer experience is done via word of mouth. Yeah. So people are actually hearing comments from their friends and families, and if you then have somebody who is communicating to you a trust issue, that will immediately make sure that this bank is not in your relevant set anymore.
Right. So yeah, Preeti.
I think I would actually say, India's an underbanked society in the sense that, the percentage of people who have active bank accounts is actually low. And I think in a society like ours or a country like ours, it's even more relevant, trust, because it's money, I mean, and
absolutely.
you can, you might have, and there's all these FinTech companies that have come, which are gaining ground, but the fact is that in India, you actually need a building, a facade. You have to say, this is where X bank is, because it proves to them it is there, it will be there for the next X number of years. It has been there for 100 years, will continue for, they may never use it, but it's a cue that the bank can be trusted because it stands there.
It exists as a brick and mortar.
As a brick and mortar thing.
Now tell me, there's huge inertia. For example, in the last 15, 20 years, we've seen a lot of private banks, especially, not only in India, across the world.
Yeah.
I've already got a bank account. Why should I think of another bank account? Unless there's failure somewhere, why do I think of another bank account? How do you deal with inertia?
You're absolutely right, because the choice of a bank is often the most important reason is because it's right next door to my house.
Right.
I mean, I can walk
like
there,
a petrol pump.
Like a petrol pump. That's
Right.
why I choose it. I don't really care what the. I think it is a lot of times when people salary accounts move to another bank, and they experience a different level of service is when they start questioning it. And that's a major thing. Sometimes there's a specific service that you actually shop around for. You're taking a housing loan or a car loan or something, and your experience there will then determine. I don't think how you operate your savings bank account or whether the ATM works or not is going to make you change a bank, but a slightly higher value, more involved transaction, if you don't satisfy on that, or a bank does a great job of it, you start looking at another account.
Yeah, so Susanna, now if we've set this up, we've got the reputation, trust, and then we've got reason for coming out of inertia. Now tell me why customer experience is so important today. Why is it important? Because then how often does a consumer need a bank? And what is the difference between one ATM and another? Or what is the difference between one app and another? What is it that you're measuring, and how do I know it's different?
So you're addressing two different things. The one is the question, why is customer experience so important? The answer to that is that today we live in a world that is dominated by experiences. When in our CX Plus survey, we found that 86% of Indian consumers are saying they would rather spend money on experiences than material things. So everything we are doing in life, whether we are traveling, whether we are buying products, goods, services at work, we are craving for experiences.
Can you expand on that? What do you mean by experience in the banking context?
In the banking context, it basically means that you are expecting the bank to go behind the hygiene factors. You are expecting the bank to provide you with an experiences that is addressing the emotional needs that you have. So very often in many industries, we look at customer journeys only from a functional perspective. So we are saying a person wants to open a bank account, they want to take out a mortgage. They don't want to take out a mortgage, they want to have safety, they want to have a future for the children. And the ability to address those emotional needs on the one hand side, and then create an experience that is not only satisfying, but that is really delighting the customer in this specific moment. That is a key differentiator for banks today.
Right. So, Preeti, coming to the India report, now I went through the results of the report, and I find that age doesn't have a big bearing on your results.
Right.
For example, let's say the top Indian bank is Yes Bank.
Right.
And then we have ICICI Bank, then we have Kotak, then HDFC, then Syndicate Bank,
Right.
in that order.
Right.
I'm saying, so what determines, are the younger banks perhaps more equipped to be aware of customer experience than the older banks? Or is it easier for them to do it because they are young?
I think it's a bit of both, but more likely that it's easier because it is, they're able to empower their people more to deliver that level of service more than the others are, and that actually makes it a lot of difference. And I think they also show a little more imagination in the way that they service customers. And like Suzanne was saying, that it's about, I'm not taking a mortgage, I'm buying a house and I'm securing my future. That's an emotional need. But you could have really simple needs like, it's time to, I'll give you an example. I was delighted with my bank because they sent me a message saying, you have 5 leaves left on your checkbook, here's a new checkbook.
Right.
I mean, they're anticipating, they're proactive, and I think, and it was a multinational bank.
So it's an algorithm which is anticipating, not a human being.
It's not a human, but somebody has said that these are customer needs, that she will often run out of check leaves or whatever, let's do that. So it is thinking ahead and then having the ability to empower that. And it has nothing to, giving you an advance warning of the checkbook and sending your checkbook has nothing to do with banking rules and guidelines and all, which are the same for everybody. It's just that little, how do I delight my customer in little ways. Yeah.
So, Susanna, fewer and fewer people visit banks nowadays.
Yes.
When is the last time any one of us visited a bank, except if you want a loan or you have a problem?
Yeah.
So my experience of the bank is on my phone. That's it, by and large, or at the ATM.
Yes.
So where is the differentiator in a phone or an ATM? Because let's suppose you're bank A and you have a great app. I look at it and I decode and I can copy it. I'm bank B. I create the same app. So what is the differentiator there?
Yes. So the differentiator is on the one hand side, the the ability to not only have a great experience on the digital, on your phone, for example, but to have a good omni-channel experience. So it's the ability to really seamlessly offer online and offline experiences. Very often customers find that one channel is working well, so the website is working well, but when they then have a further inquiry, they call in, then they need to repeat their customer history because the information is not collected in one place. The second key differentiator is the way how banks are able to get empathy and emotion across in those moments where it really matters, where somebody is calling in. Yeah. But also a digital world can be an emotional experience. If I'm able to design an app that is appealing in a way that it is not the standard, that is differentiating. If I'm using even a chatbot that is simulating a very human and emotional way, I can still engage people even on a digital channel very strongly.
Right. So I'm asking you a question, you can think about it, but who should be in charge of this experience? Is it the CMO, is it the CTO, is it the CIO, is it the CDO? Who should head the customer experience? Who should head the project? Who should take the call?
It's a good question. And the answer is, on the one hand side, banks need to realize that everybody is in charge of the customer experience. So it is.
But who's going to sign the check? Who's going to call for the,
exactly.
write the RFP?
Yes. So it needs to be a C-level project. This is very clear. Many companies now have chief experience officers. They have chief customers officers. Often it's the CEOs who have the ultimate responsibility. We find that if companies don't have the senior level sponsorship for a CX project, then this is likely to be jeopardized, because you need somebody who is really sponsoring this, who is making sure that the momentum on the initiative is not lost.
Right. So tell me, Preeti, from this study, now this you've taken a deep dive into the banking sector. Right. Now, what are the learnings you've got from this in this study, which I can use if I'm in the auto sector or the insurance sector or whatever other sector?
I think the basic framework remains the same, Anant.
Right.
And the premise on which the framework is based is applicable across any sector. That you make a promise through your brand, you have to deliver that through the service you provide. If you don't, there's a gap and you're harming not only the service but also the brand, and vice versa. That premise is the same. Yeah. Whether you're selling auto or you're selling real estate or you're selling, some of those attributes may be different, it's a different thing. Yeah. But the fundamental premise is universal.
Okay, before I come back, I'm going to stay with you, Preeti. Yeah. In India, we've had very high inertia in opening a second bank or switching a bank account. Right. However, the last 3-4 years, we've seen the explosion of these payment wallets and banks. Why does that happen? Are they a threat to banks? Because they have terrific digital experiences, but they do not have a brick and mortar building.
They don't have a brick and mortar.
So why is it that, why are they doing well? A, are they doing well? B, if they're doing well, why are they doing well?
They're doing reasonably well in the sense that they're first of all in everybody's mind.
Right.
And everybody has some form of these digital wallet things on their phones. But I suspect, and we can check this, I suspect that they are used for low value transactions. Pay the milkman, pay the vegetable guy, auto rickshaw and all that kind of. The fundamental, reason why banks exist is to protect your money and to give you a return on that, or to help you out when you need large sums of money. I'm not sure these can.
No, they can't. They're not allowed to.
They're not allowed to, and they will.
Right.
So it's okay. I mean, I can trust this with. Trust the FinTech or these guys with small amounts of money. It's okay. And it's people with small amounts of money who are using them a lot more. Okay.
And finally, I'm going to ask both of you the same question. Should the CEO get involved? Should the CEO or should the board get involved in designing the customer experience on the digital front? Because in a brick and mortar world, they used to decide where the head office is, what the interiors would be. They would do all that. I mean, I just read about Microsoft. opened a new shop on Oxford Street, and you've got the Microsoft CEO talking about the office. Why don't we get CEOs talking about the customer service experience?
They should definitely be
What should the CEO's
involved.
involvement be? What should the involvement be?
So for me, the CEO needs to be the one who is providing the vision. He needs to be the one who is very clearly communicating, this is what we stand for as a company, this is the customer experience we want to provide. He or she needs to then be the one who is role modeling the behavior. Because if the top-down behavior is not role modeled, then we cannot expect the employees to really pick this up. And thirdly, I would say the CEOs are also responsible for really ensuring that the program is continuously revitalized, that is continuously momentum, engagement around the customer in the organization.
Right. Before I come to you, Preeti, I don't want you to answer something. In Germany, where you come from, what language do you do transactions? On your phone?
Banking transactions in German.
In German.
Yeah.
So Preeti, in India, why can't I do my banking in Tamil? You know, because here you look at it.
Yeah.
We've got,
Yeah.
you know, why can't I do it in Odia? Why can't I do that? Because that's a large part of customer service.
Right.
And
Right.
almost all countries, you can do your, you know, banking transactions in a language you're comfortable in.
Exactly.
And this is money.
Yeah.
I can make a mistake in
I
a
can
language
make a mistake,
I'm not
exactly.
comfortable with. So have
Actually,
you dived into that at all? Because it does sort of
I mean,
astound
it
me.
limits
Because
one is,
if you look at the brick and mortar world,
yeah.
if I'm in Chennai, I walk and the teller speaks to me in Tamil.
Tamil. Yeah.
If I'm
Signs
in
are
Kolkata and I walk and the teller speaks to me in Bengali.
Yeah.
However, digitally, I'm trapped.
In an English-speaking world, exactly.
Yeah, so I've got only English
and
Hindi
is there.
perhaps.
Yeah.
On the ATM, here I can do three languages
Three
only.
languages,
Right, in Bombay.
But nobody asks you what language do you want to...
They do.
I mean,
actually,
they
on the
ask you
ATM.
for three languages,
Yes,
no?
only three languages.
Yeah.
But if it's beyond that, so how important is it, in your opinion, that the experience has to be language comfortable also?
I think it's really important that you are providing a personalized experience.
Right.
And personalized is would then also mean that you need to address the customer in the language that he or she feels most comfortable with.
I think the route actually is to give not written but verbal service.
Right.
Meaning because we are not a 100% literate society. We are comfort with literature.
Is that your instinct answering, or is that your study answering?
No, the study doesn't talk about, I don't think it talks about language as an issue. I'm saying, now that you've raised it, I'm saying that we are probably, the way to go is actually not to have the ATM talk to you, or the digital experience be a, Alexa, Siri kind of experience, rather than expecting me to be literate and highly literate in those languages.
So then where are we going to be differentiated? Because again, this is easier than, equality in digital is easier than equality in brick and mortar. So where will you find your differentiator?
We've touched upon this a couple of times. In my view, the differentiators are that the digital experience in itself can be a differentiator if I do it truly well. What we are seeing is that satisfaction alone, and many banks are catering for the average in a way, the average customer. There is no such thing as the average customer. And it's not sufficient to only provide a customer service or a digital experience that is satisfactory. It really needs to be excellent. It needs to put the customer in a state where they are truly delighted. And the second component was then the human engagement, the human interaction, to bring this in as good as possible to really make sure that it's a good omni-channel experience.
So
I think one of the things that the CX framework actually tells us is when you talk about differentiation, is that you should differentiate the experience by what your brand promises, meaning that if I am, say, Bank X and I stand for efficiency, and efficiency and convenience, whereas I'm bank
Band
B, which stands for warm fuzzy happiness, then my service has to be that. I can't be warm fuzzy happiness in a
digital world and then not in the
whatever,
brick and mortar world.
And also you can say that when you come to me, you will not have to spend more than 5 minutes doing anything. Whereas when you come to brand another, bank B, which is supposed to be supporting and helping you, we'll spend time with you. We'll do that. We'll educate you, etc. So I think it's important that your service is aligned with what your brand promises.
Right. So Preeti, what do you think the study will do for you at Kantar?
What will it do?
What does it do? No, What do you?
Well, I think first of all, it will help us communicate to, initially of course to retail banking, but to all other sectors, the importance of linking the two, and also that as Kantar, we are the best positioned to help you with both your brand positioning and how you're doing there, and how you're delivering. Because a lot of times what we have done, we ourselves had done till now, and a lot of customer satisfaction companies do, is measure those in isolation and and give recommendations here, and they're doing something completely different on the brand. So I think if it can help us position us as people who truly understand the customer, because the two weigh in on each other.
Right, absolutely. Okay. Thank you so much, Preeti.
Thank
you,
you,
Susanna.
Thank you. And that was the conversation. Anant, what do you think marketers can take away from the conversation?
What I try to probe is what marketers from outside FinTech or outside banking could take away from the conversation. It's not only those in banking.
Okay.
And I think there is a lot. Like I said at the top of the show, the basics is that we are living in an analog plus digital world.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a sort of consistency in the way brands treat their consumers in the analog world and the digital world. There's a promise which is made in an analog world, and that promise has to come through in the digital world. You can't have a dissonant voice. You can't have something happening on analog and a different thing happening on digital. So there has to be continuity, there has to be seamlessness, and the consumers must feel whether he's dealing with the company or brand physically or on his app or his phone, or her app or her phone, that it's the same experience.
All right. Well, on that note, it's a wrap on this episode of Melt. You can also watch all our content on our social media platforms. Our handle is Ready to Melt. And I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Goodbye.